No problem. No problem. We were just saying there that on going back to the much more important Tunnock's tea cakes theme. Boyd Tunnock, who owns the company, is a multimillionaire and supports a private lifeboat station down near St. Abb's Head. And every so often he turns up in his Rolls Royce, and the boot is stuffed full of Tunnock's tea cakes and caramel wafers and things. And the lifeboat people think it's a wonderful idea. Anyway, welcome back. This is Breakout Session A. You're in bio green. If it says that on your badge, we're laughing. This talk is called Developing a Culture of Information Governance. It's delivered to you by Cedric Krummes, Information Governance Officer for HS2. Cedric, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the welcome, and welcome everybody on the internet. Hello there. So let's have a look. It's always just a clicky thing, isn't it? There we are. That's me now. So just before I start, let me just tell you about HS2. HS2 stands for High Speed 2. We are building a new railway at the moment physically building at the moment between London Euston and Birmingham. And we will continue also building up further north of England, but hopefully the trains will also reach Scotland. It is a government initiative, so it's a private company owned or set by the Department for Transport. We try to cut carbon, increase capacity, and we also want to make the cities more connected to each other. So, in terms of IG, I don't know whether you know this book. Does anybody has heard of this book? This is the second edition of Information Governance. I'll be honest, I actually haven't read it, but I have read the introduction. So I do like it because it's one of the few books around that tells me a good way what information governance is. And what I like about it is it touches on so many things. It's not just data protection. I used to work at the NHS in England. For them, information governance is actually data protection. That's what they call it, but it isn't. So it touches much more. So we want to talk about culture today. This is not what we want. Yeah, we don't want the old FUD. So fear, uncertainty, and doubt. It's a rather old-fashioned way. And also, if you know about compliance fatigue, this sort of fear fatigue, it doesn't work. Okay. So let's try the alternative then. So otherwise I will get fuddy with you. So the alternative is what I call my fail-safe approach. So it's trying to be fair, approachable, implemented, and long-term. So while I will talk about those, I just want to give you the time to think about it as well. You know, what is the IG culture like? What is data protection, information security, information management like in your organization? What do you think is your fail-safe approach? You know, how can you translate it for yourself? How can you adapt it? You know, how can you localize it in your own company? So let's try first talking about fairness then, how to be fair. This is a quote I saw back in 2019, and it's actually from a initially health and safety initiative. So I'll read it out for those who might not be looking at the slides. Human failure comes from failures in design management and decision-making processes. This, for me, is a power quote. It's a quote that I try to keep in mind whenever I do IG, information governance, or data protection and information security. You probably have seen maybe on LinkedIn, cartoons about this is the computer, it's super safe, and on this side you've got the human, the stupid human. The problem is we like to, certainly on our side, we like to think of humans as they are the stupid ones. They always make mistakes, they make errors. Funnily enough, they do that, they don't think like that in health and safety. So there is a change there. So this is from the Health and Safety Executive. They've got a PDF about understanding human failure. Can I just, from the people in the room, sorry, can you just lift your hand if you've seen this document before in one incarnation or another? I've got 3 hands up. There's more than 3 people in the room. So That means that people might not be aware that human error is a thing. It's a thing that organizations look at. It's a thing that health and safety tries to look at. And at the same time, it also tells you that when there is a human error, training is not always the answer. Somebody's taking a screenshot of this slide. They can go and download the PDF as well. Go and have a look at the PDF. Now, the thing is, that's one way to look at fairness. The other thing is that at HS2, we have a fair culture, and we use this old branding flow chart. We don't use the new colors. To go through investigations. So when I investigate a data incident, I would go through these different stages here to see whether something was deliberate, whether something is more on the person side of a problem, of the incident, or whether rather it's something, if you remember the power quote earlier, something about the design, something about the management processes, on which side, where do you tick the box? So it is a continuum, but usually you want to, what did I want to say? What I want to say is that when I do my investigations, it rather tends to be on the right-hand side. So it tends to be something about processes needs changing. So when you investigate things, oh, sure, you can just blame it on the person. You can blame it on, that you can take pictures of. That's what I've done that one. Is that the people think of just errors, but there's so many things you can look at. If you do your 5 whys, if you know Lean Six Sigma process improvements, you do your root cause analysis, your Ishikawa diagrams, your fishbone diagrams, you can use these different bins here, so you've got 3 3 tangible bins, the people, equipment, and environment, and you've got the non-tangible bins, the data, software, and methods. So you can investigate all those things. All those things make it easier to look at that the person is not always simple. You can't just blame the person. This is how I try to be fair in my work. That's how we try to be fair. Now, one way that we heard this morning in the questions is, how can the punters ask questions? How can we give reassurances to people? So it's about to be approachable. Are you a subject matter expert who is part of what I call the no department? The people who always say no to any project? It's like, no, we do security, you can't have it. Or are you the people who want to say yes and? Yeah, have you ever been to one of those, what's it called when you do comedy in a sort of spontaneous way? Improv. So the first rule of improv is yes and. So have a think, are you a yes and department or are you a no department? So let's go for it. So the one thing to be, is to be approachable is to give reassurances to people. So I say this all the time, people spook. Yeah, they get spooked very easily, whatever you do. So you want to give them reassurances. For example, this is copy pasted from my template email when I go back to them with questions, or when I tell them I will come back to you with questions about the incident. Another way is to care, to be fair, and to make them aware. As you can tell, I like words, so I've got a PhD in linguistics, so it's important to be languagey about this. But really, for example, here, somebody lost their phone. It happens every so often. It happens in your companies maybe as well, and especially if they are out and about. So it's important to care about them, because you don't know, they might have had a burglar coming in, they might have been burgled in the car. So it's important to show our humanity as well. It's not just to instantly go to the third part, but at the same time, it's about being open. When I did the training in investigation, my trainer said, always remain curious. So remain curious when you ask what happened, because they might tell you, oh, I just went to the pub and I came back and it was gone. That's just how it goes sometimes, doesn't it? But that's, so try to care, try to be fair, and try to make them aware. The other thing, I'm glad the gifs work. Sorry, GIFs. is how you interact with people. I do use this GIF every so often, not very many times. It's like expensive salt. You can only use it so many times. But it's a way to be approachable. I use emojis as well, just because emojis make sometimes things easier. You add a quick visual thing to something. I praise them. I do say thank you when they report an incident. And I thank you as well if they are vigilant for something. It's positive reinforcement. Again, we are not the no department. We are the yes and department. On Teams, I try to use some little casual words. I try to pretend to be Scottish by saying canny. I wouldn't go as far as Ken. Ken is too far. These are English people in Birmingham. They wouldn't know all that sort of stuff. But also, this is something that I have to try with people, is to ask them, if I don't know something, I tell them, please come back to me with the answers, because now I want to know. I'm not always going to do their homework, but still. Okay, let's go now to the next slide, because you've seen me waving far too many times now. Sorry. All right, then let's look at implemented. In terms of implementation, then, I just thought, what does it mean to implement information governance? And I thought to myself, for me, it's about improving things. And when I think of improvement, first of all, I hate it when businesses came up with just saying, oh, it needs to be more efficient. It doesn't mean anything to me. So I thought back in 2017, right, I need to come up with an acronym to remember what efficiency can mean, and hence the facets of improvement. So you can make something faster, more accessible, in terms of disability, for example, universal design, impairments. You can make things cheaper, easier. You can make things more transparent, which could mean maybe easier to explain. And you can make things more secure. It used to be safer, but then I thought, Cedric needs to use the word secure more. So, and there are different ways you can improve things around your organization. I know you will probably do your, records of processing activities, your information asset register. If you do information asset register, please link up with me. That's one of my jobs. I need your help, or I'd love to share ideas with you as well. What we also have is we've got a values champion scheme at HS2. So if you are really good at putting a value into practice, we nominate these people and they get voted, hopefully, to be a values champion, and then they maybe get even the yearly values champion in that category. So what happened is that one of my colleagues, she came up to me with a concern, and she talked about something about teams. So we looked into this. I looked into this with my team as well. We went to IT, and in the end, I was able to send out a whole email campaign to different stakeholders at work. And we got results. We really improved our security posture. But it wouldn't have happened had my colleague, Alison, not done that for me. So it's a way as well to recognize your staff who do these things. So it's about this praising, it's this positive reinforcement. So this is how it works as well. Another thing you can do is to find out, is there ways you can help people? I call it micro-helping. This is Slay Queen. She is a drag queen, and she, like a good drag queen that she is very good at managing her own records. Now, I once talked about sorting out a physical stuff on Anglesey to people. I said, oh, I had so many books, so many towels. And then I thought, this is probably how we are at work as well. We've got too many files and folders. I call them frumpy files and folders. And people said to me, I could have help with that. So I'm helping now people, I'm trying to develop a methodology to help people to tidy up their files and folders. And if you like Marie Kondo, we're not sparking joy, we are sparking HS2. It's cheesy, but cheesy works, at least in our organization. So, but the good thing with this micro-helping is that you get to know people, you get to discuss other things, so we discussed the difference between SharePoint and maybe the other drives. When I was working at Coventry University, we had the L drive, which was the common staff drive. The other thing I did is that somebody said that, well, we are sending these instructions to people so that they can access a folder, and they don't really get it. They don't really understand it. They don't do it. I think it's because they are old. And I said to my colleague, I don't know about this, but send me over what you send them. So the left-hand side is what they send them, which is an email. I didn't change anything to it apart from just to redact it. You can tell it, I find it ugly. You don't know where to look. There's no hierarchy. There's no nothing. Information management is how you present information as well. So the right-hand side is a reviewed version. Again, emojis, no gifs this time, sorry. But it makes it slightly easier. It's also more accessible. The hyperlinks are now put inside the text as opposed to giving you the full URL. In case you didn't know, if you use a screen reader, you get the full URL being read out to you. It's exhausting. So it's one way to look at this as well. And then is the long term. So how do you want things to work out for you? So I know that in the abstract, it says something about the different measures. I wrote the abstract before I wrote these slides. I will now disappoint you, but that's just how it goes. That's the secret out, isn't it? So what can you do in terms of long term? Number one rule, no podcasts. If you are a man, you are white, possibly heterosexual, do not do a podcast about information governance, data protection, or information security at work. Nobody will be interested. Okay, so especially there's one age group that is at risk for podcasts. We need to protect them at all costs. So it's the same thing with people who do a weekly thing. You've got the data protection manager. I will have a weekly surgery. Honey, nobody will come to your surgery. The first 2 weeks, maybe. The next 400 weeks, nobody. The same thing is with if you try to do something special interesty, the my world. I will do something about my world of interest. Try to do it the other way around. Yeah, so try to go to their worlds. This is why, for example, we have a professional development network at HS2. We try to piggyback on them. So we have the Cyber Nuggets, which is quarterly, not too much. That's enough sprinkling for them to handle. It's also, and just like chicken nuggets, it's bland enough for people to enjoy in their own way. Yeah, so they can use ketchup or that sweet curry that is not too nice. It's got apricot in it for some reason. The other thing is try to piggyback on goals and performance reviews. Yeah, is there a way you can tell people, well, how about improving your own posture by coming to these goals and performance reviews? So it's about using the other people's needs and then using that for your own success. Staff networks. I'm part of the Together network at HS2. It's about disability and accessibility. I try to put my flavor of it in that network as well, even though I am trying to be representing the mental health conditions at work. So team depression, here we go. Another way to look at long-term stuff is to forge alliances. Hopefully, this is something you do already, but if you think all you need to do is be, in cahoots or under the same duvet, as the Germans say, for info security or data protection and IT, that's not enough. So go to your comms, go to risk, go to all these learning and development, HR, all these different places. Does that make sense? I think they say it makes sense. Does it make sense to you guys? Right, the next thing is, this is something I have not invented, but I have adapted it. So this is from a handbook of public and stakeholder engagement. And it's basically increasing the engagement from a one way of dealing with your stakeholders, which is probably anybody at work, to the next one, to the very one where you can delegate authorities. So if you have, for example, data champions at work, you're probably in the that brownish one, the maroon one. I don't know what the colors are. Oh, sorry, it's orange. Sorry, it looks maroon from here. So try to move more towards the right side. There are things you can do left side-ish, but are there things you can do right side-ish? The next thing, and this is where I urge you to be maybe more localize your things, is to be your true self. Because only by being your true self, you can develop a voice and you can also start to listen and react better to other places. So Leah Turner, who is one of those gurus on LinkedIn, how to engage with, with businesses, that's okay. but she noticed herself that she needed to use her own voice. And I find myself that as well, that the more I work in information governance, the more I get to know my own style, and for you as well, whether you are introverts or extroverts, there is something in you there. So again, this is my fail-safe approach. I would say fairness doesn't really have to be, oh, that's a Cedric thing only. It's not. It's not. The same thing with the approachability. You can all be approachable. You can be a subject matter expert, but you can still be approachable, etc. So that's really it for me now. So if you have a phone with you, check out the QR code to leave me feedback, and I will go and sit down next to Mark for some Q&As. Thank you.
Anybody got a question for Cedric? Other than how do you get away with it? Oh, somebody's got to have something. Come on. I mean, you obviously have a very distinctive style within what it must be really quite a large organization. Is that something that alarmed them for a start, or did they take to it straight away?
Take away to what? To
when they've hired you, you start communicating in what is, as I said, a very distinctive style. Was it something they were comfortable with straight away? No.
I found, and I still find, comms very difficult because, and this is for any organization, is that we are not the main bread and butter of the organization. My organization builds a railway, so we're talking tracks, stations, the trains, and the signaling. So we're not even doing so we're not even running them yet. So all the news, the most news that we get is about tunnels, tunnel boring machines. So there is only a percentage that can go to any other things. So you're always in fight with other priorities. So one of, for example, safety is a value at HS2, which does include security, but it definitely has health and safety. So how can we fight for security when you've got health and safety being well branded, for example, or so much better established? I'm sorry to tell you guys, I'm sorry in the internet as well, but health and safety does things better than what we do, because they are the scary ones. We are the scary ones, health and safety is embedded. Oh, but the hand went up straight away when I said that.
There you go. Leslie.
Leslie Holmes, hopefully you can hear me. I totally get your point about health and safety, because it is embedded and it's taken years for it to be embedded, and it will take years for information governance to be embedded, because we're to some extent architects of our own demise, in that we've never taught people how to file in the last 20 years. We've just given them a PC and God knows how much space and told them to get on with it. And we are now reaping the rewards of that. But the point I was originally going to make is, have you come across the no buts rather than the yes ands?
Okay, have I come across the no buts? No, you can't do that, but you can do that. Okay, so yes, so I can give you a very quick example. No, you can't have Grammarly at HS2, but you can have a more secure version that does similar things. So that would be the equivalent. Is that the equivalent what you meant, Leslie?
Yeah, absolutely.
So can I also just then piggyback on what you said, is that health and safety we see, there's a bias towards the tangible, the visible. So when Chernobyl exploded, people could see it, When a plane crashes with lots of passengers, people will see it. When a data center burns, we can see the burning. There was what was it, in 2020 in France, near Strasbourg, a data center burned. Okay, the burning was probably in the news, but afterwards nobody cared about it anymore. So there's definitely a 20-year distance between the health and safety law that came about and the first data protection law that came about. but at the same time, we don't have that. We don't have that visibility. You can't see data, and that's what frustrates me. And what frustrates me is that when I went in 2019 to the ICO conference, and I asked them, how can you improve an IG data protection culture? They only had a wishy-washy answer. They just said, well, we just try our best. And that doesn't work.
Mm-hmm. Microphone's coming to you. There you go.
I think that's interesting. It's interesting about the health and safety. Sorry, right. So I'm data protection officer, but my background, I'm actually a radiographer. So I've come from a healthcare background, and I'm not techie. I'm not legal. So I try to put things in a very practical way. In my previous role, I was risk and governance lead, Caldecott Guardian and data protection officer, and health and safety came under my remit as well. And what we did was we got the information governance manager, myself, and my health and safety lead, and we sat in a room and we thrashed out how we wanted our risk assessments and our risk registers to be. From that, we created a matrix so that whether it was a clinical risk, whether it was a financial risk, whether it was a health and safety risk, it all followed the same pattern, so that people were given 1 to 5 on the consequence of each thing. And that helped within that company to embed everything that we needed about GDPR, because I was in there shouting about it as well. So by sort of creating that, we also knocked down some of the silos. And I think, that's when you sort of, and I did face no's and no buts, but we got everybody on to using exactly the same thing. And they're still using it, even though I'm gone. Yay. But I'm now taking that to other places. So when people talk to me about how do we assess risk, how can you assess risk for, what you can't see? Well, yes, you can. And here's how you can do it. And I think if we develop those things, then, and sort of like, it is the same thing. And I think when in radiography, when GDPR was coming in, they all started like, oh, grief, and I was like, hang on. In my lifetime, we've had health and safety come into us. We've had the IRMA rules come into us. It's just another law. And that's how I approach it.
That's a very positive message. Thank you for sharing that. If it's just another law, then and thank you for bringing up that you can have these sort of risk matrices, and showing maybe the different severity levels. If it's a 2 in health, what is a 2 in data, for example? Do we have a question?
No, we're going to leave it there just now, just because we actually started a bit late, so my apologies. But thank you very much. And can I ask you to thank Cedric one more time, please? Right.